Hello and welcome back to my channel and the second installment of my RuneQuest Classic Edition solo campaign. Now on today's video I want to talk about, I want to describe the structure and the proposed content of the future campaign and the solo role-playing system that I'm using to drive this. Also, I want to give an overview of the world setting and how the system is going to progress that. Now, I might have to divide this into two videos because I've got quite a lot of points to get through and cover, but well, let's see how we get on. I can get a feel for that as we progress through the video. So the first thing I'd like to say is the response to the first video has been quite amazing. It really has taken me aback. It looks as though there's been quite a lot of interest in the video. There's been plenty of people watching, views, and my subscribers have really kind of rocketed it up. So thank you very much for joining. I'm hoping. I have been looking around on YouTube, and it doesn't appear to be that anyone else is looking at RuneQuest 2 for as a solo campaign, or have been playing it. So maybe I am fulfilling a little niche, and hopefully I can scratch that RuneQuest 2 itch for that everybody's dying to scratch. So thanks very much for joining if you're new. And it's also what it's done is it's kind of refocused my mind about how the regularity of the videos, and whether I should really kind of follow some demands basically, and my current scheduling, because I had originally I run two other channels. I've got the AD&D first edition solo campaign, which is in quite a mature state now. It's over 80 videos I've done, and I've been running that for just probably about 4 months now. And then I've started a traveler solo campaign, classic edition, and I'm up to maybe about 17 videos, I think, on that. I've been running that for about a month. And I kind of came to a conclusion that I would do 2 AD&D a week and 1 traveler. And I was gonna, when I launched the RuneQuest, I was going to do that as a tertiary stream. However, based on the response, I might elevate it slightly in my scheduling and give it equal parity, maybe to the traveler one, but not sacrifice the travelers. So this gives me a stick with which to beat myself. I have to have 4 videos a week. I am going to manage that somehow with the RuneQuest one. I really enjoyed just going through all that RuneQuest stuff a few days ago, and just talking about it and ruminating on the past. And it really was very good. And one of the things that I particularly liked talking about was I don't know where you actually discern my enthusiasm. It was when I was talking about Elric and Melnibone and Stormbringer, and the fact that I used to GM referee a campaign for my old gaming group, my original gaming group. And we really had a lot of fun with the Stormbringer RPG. And what this has done is it's made me go out onto eBay and purchase. I wanted a hardback, so the one I've got is the 3rd edition, which I believe is very similar to. It was the 1st edition I played, which was a paperback. But basically, my paperback just disintegrated after because we played it so much, and I've now got a nice hardback, and I think it has a companion in it. So I'm going to be showing that off. And the temptation that I've fallen down is that I'm going to probably be tempted to start a channel, a stream on that. But that really has to be, you know, far down the line. Hopefully, RuneQuest will be the primary, but it uses the same system. But you know, it's just maybe a bit more summarized. Okay. So basically, I'm going to change the scheduling on the RuneQuest, so I'm going to have been far more regular. And because I've had so many new subscribers, I thought it's only fair and a good idea to give maybe just an explanation of my overall channel philosophy and the ethos and how I play my solo role-playing games. Because I think the people that are watching my AD&D one and my Traveller one kind of know what my style is, but it might be a bit of a shock to the system if you're just new to the RuneQuest one. So I'll just give a quick kind of lowdown on that. Just while we're about to go into that, this is my new classic version, which I showed off last time. Beautiful book with all the shiny pages. And I've decided to take the dust cover off for the time being, and just use this beautiful outside. Look at that, you know, with that gold. Yeah, it really is quite spectacular. And then it's all blank on the back. But you know, this was about the only mark I actually had on this version. It really was terrific. Absolutely delighted with it. I'm just a bit scared of you know, what happens with the dust cover. Sometimes you get snagging, and you're always kind of careful opening it, and it kind of flops off. Whereas with this, I can be quite robust with it, and because I use these nice surfaces and whatever, I'm not, you know, I don't do heavy damage to my books. I usually tend to look after them. So that's why I've got this nice thing to look at just now. Just going back to how I play role-playing games. My concept is what I would call retro style, and I've had it described to myself as an analog format, and what I try to do is conjure up a vision of you being transported back to whatever year this role-playing game came out. So in the case of AD&D, it was 1978, and that's when we started getting all the books. In the case of Traveller, it was 1977, and in the case of RuneQuest, this was RuneQuest 2, 1979. So I'm asking you to suspend your disbelief, get in your time machine, and hurtle back through time to 1979, and I tried to play the way we used to play back then, and I did do a lot of soloing back then. I played all the games that I'm playing now solo, and I did quite a lot of things, and I generated lots of different rules, and I was endlessly tinkering with these games and doing all sorts of stuff and trying to do hybrids and meshing things and taking things from RuneQuest and putting them into AD&D and vice versa, and you know, just it was non-stop. And I had a list of role-playing games the length of your arm. You know, I was playing Surveying Sorcery, Space Opera, Aftermath, all the FGU ones, and you know, it was constant, and I think I was just so immersed in it. And I want to try, you know, with this channel, I just want to try and recreate that kind of passion that I had, yeah, you know, just to show you how the things have progressed on the rule books. This is my first edition. This is this old state lady. You know, it's kind of fallen to bits, but this is the first edition. Look at that. That's 78 by Chaos. So maybe I got a later print, but this is oh no, it was 78 that it came out, because 79 is the second edition, isn't it? And this is, you know, look at all that kind of document. This is like one of these old parchment scrolls that you would get maybe down a dungeon. It kind of looks like it's been through, you know, even the map is a bit kind of like someone just got a pencil out and just drawn it. You know, that's like one of my maps. And what I particularly liked about it were these things, these little inserts, where someone had got their typewriter out and been bashing away on the typewriter and just stuck it in on a piece of paper, and set the printer to go. There we go. Yeah, that's a very good, hit location chart. Real old school stuff. But fantastic. Loved it. RuneQuest 1. Not too much difference actually in RuneQuest 2, maybe just a bit tidier, a few more rules. And this is my RuneQuest 2 version. And yeah, if you compare it to the classic, obviously this is lavished with a bit of opulence in comparison. But this was a good workmanlike. But it's got a bit of trouble with my spine. It keeps on kind of breaking. So that was one of the reasons I decided. It's got a few marks in it. I don't know. It's almost like burn marks or whatever. It's fallen to bits a bit. So I wanted to maybe just give it a bit of a rest and put it back into retirement. You can watch on in quiet admiration of what we're doing on this channel. It's done its job. It's done a fine job playing RuneQuest for about 4 years for our groups. It's time maybe just to hand on the baton to a younger version. Nice hardback. So this overall thing is that 1979. And also imagine that all that we had at that stage was we'd had RuneQuest 1 in 78, we've had RuneQuest 2 in 79, and the only modules I think were Blaster Barracks, which I never played. I can't remember. I had some sort of skeleton or something on the front. Apple Lane, which we played, and Snake Pipe Hollow. And Cults of Prax hadn't even. I think that was May 1979. So imagine all that pre-Gloranthan stuff, and that's what we've got here. We've got this. We're back there, and that's a big part of my channel's kind of ethos. And I use the core rules as the basis of everything, and I overlay them with my solo system. And I call it a system. It's not really anything grand. You're not going to find Brian's version of Mythic or something like that. But you're going to find basically some enhancements and mechanics that I've just developed over the years. And you're probably going to get like an 80-20 split of rules, and the rules being demonstrated. Like I'll be doing the combat and all these skills and things and whatever in detail, and then 20% my stuff is just an overlay, and that's really just to help with making this soloable, if that is a verb. So 80-20 is what we're aiming for, and my solo system it reflects how I want to play my game. It should reflect my style, which is self-described as very slow. I'm quite pedantic and methodical in my approach to playing my games. My AD&D campaign, I've done 82 videos on that, and we're only up to the end of week 2. Now, I'm not doing this as a badge of honor and saying, oh, look at me, I take, because, it should be like a hall of shame, really. But what's happened is that it's really reflecting my style, that I've enjoyed all the detail. I've immersed myself into, I've given in to my desires in going down all the little different tangents, and I'm really enjoying just the daily. I've got my little characters. I've got my ranger and my cleric and my fighter magic user and my fighter thief, and they're all doing things every day, and it just feels like your day is filling up. It's like modern life, but in AD&D terms. How your life just gets filled up every day with stuff, and there's not enough hours in it. That's kind of what my AD&D campaign is like just now. It really is quite difficult to manage. But we're getting there. Maybe that I'm at the pre-training stage for level advancement. Maybe it will pick up a bit of a pace when we start needing to do some training. So, and also when you think about it, RuneQuest and my other game that I'm doing, Traveller, they're probably a bit more abstract in terms of time, or they can be. The fact that you've got to do quite a lot of training, and my mechanics was probably going to focus on these time segments for training and downtime, and how to I'm going to try and discipline myself and almost like use a more extended calendar for RuneQuest and Traveller, and then probably adapt that, almost retrofit it back onto my AD&D one, and get into the 21st century with the which I suppose is against the ethos. It's but even I didn't play quite slowly back in the 70s, 80s. I'm just really kind of indulged myself a bit in the AD&D one, and I'm enjoying it. Okay, so that's a wee bit about me, and also I suppose just moving on from that, I like the detail that I get from my system, and being organized, and it also gives me quite a feeling of being in control. And because it's my system and I know it, I feel like I can cover all aspects and things, and ensure that things don't fall down the cracks. Because I've got my folders of stuff. This is my AD&D folder, where I just keep, there's my calendar, and then I've got notes of, this is my overall schedule of events type thing that I've got my maps. I've got all the characters here. I like to do them longhand. I might for the RuneQuest ones, I might use the character sheet. And then experience summaries and finances and journaling. And here's like the starting place and little pictures of what we've got. And there's my starting in. So I've got a whole folder that I've generated over the time. And then a lot of these are all my supporting notes that I've got, that I've written for the solo campaign, where I've got almost like a checklist that I go through to see how I progress, and all the different things like local events and area generation. This tells me how, just assistance on how I should be generating, and adventure generator to just get some ideas going. So I'm going to be doing the same. I'll probably end up with the same type of stuff for RuneQuest. In fact, I know I will end up. I've already started doing that. And finally, on just the overall background, the RuneQuest 2 system, I like the challenge of a game, and to make it soloable in my image. So I think with RuneQuest, because it's the actual game itself is a bit. It's quite sophisticated, and it's got the skill-based system. It's also very much more background heavy, I would say. It really goes into the cults and the mythos, and the history, and just the setting is very important. I am quite keen to try to combine that with my solo game. And it also, that dovetails a lot with my historical interests too. So I don't mind delving into the cultural side, the social side, just the fact that, some of these cultures are quite fascinating, and I'd just like to develop them from an historical interest point of view. So that scratches that itch too. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is talk about the structures and stages of my solo campaign. And to assist me, I have got my overview of what these are going to be. And I do have, they go on for 3 pages. And I'll be skipping through points. So I'm not going to be, it's not, hopefully not going to be too intense, and I'll be able to clarify a few bits and bobs as we go through it. But this really sets out how I plan to structure my campaign, and at certain points introduce different elements. And I'll have an overall schedule which will control the process. I'll have little mechanics within it to facilitate how I play, but the majority of it will be down to this guy doing things like combat and magic and all the rune stuff and the cults. That will all be generated from that. But this is my kind of like my my aid to the campaign, to modulate the results, to interpret and basically assist me to play this solo. And what I'll be doing is I'll just be narrate. You know, I do it kind of real time, so I very rarely do I go away and say, oh well, I'm just going to go away and do that. In fact, I don't think I've done that in a D&D campaign, apart from maybe just some bookkeeping on things to do with experience and some of the inventory and probably the encumbrance type stuff. So mostly as I say, I do it kind of real time. So that's probably what I'm going to do for this game too, as much as possible. Basically everything's going to be on camera, and apart from like I've just had a pause there because I was coughing a bit. I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. I usually try to do it all in one take, my videos, and I'm not really into editing or anything. I don't do any editing. It's just you take it with it comes. Basically, I just shoot it and then upload it, and it goes on the internet, onto YouTube. So it's basically straight off the press. As soon as you see it in your watch list or whatever, it's straight off the press. So just maybe not delve more into the mechanics, but let's get back to the system. So my RuneQuest Classic Edition solo campaign, my solo role-playing system, I'm saying that the campaign is going to be driven by a core mechanism which involves the use of a 3-option procedure. Now I explained that I think last video. Sometimes combined with specific random tables, and this will be referred to from now on as the solo mechanic. So my solo mechanic is the driver on the campaign. This will be deployed whenever a decision point is reached or a point that needs to be resolved and answered. Now, an example of that would be the motivation of an encounter group needs to be determined. So I could do my 3 options on that. Or the campaign development requires progression. So within each of the stages, I've got little points where I have to say, I need this settlement designed, or I need this character fleshed out, or I need, just little trigger points. And I've got my 3 options. I have a mechanism, I think I explained before, for my AD&D campaign, I have a mechanism I call the Rule of 4, where I do these 4 options sometimes in encounters, just to give a kind of motivation to why these people are either in a dungeon or what they're trying to do, and it gives a sense of, as I say, motivation to why are they there, and how will the encounter unfold. And it gives me some clues. I'm going to be doing this far more intensely in this game, and have that kind of driving some of the NPC responses and interactions, and also in the actual overall campaign, how we develop some of the environment around about. So the timing of these interventions, I'm going to say, will be governed by this, what I refer to as the campaign schedule. So the solo mechanic, the campaign schedule, they're key to my system. And the main thing is I have what I call a stage approach. So I have stages that I go through, and we. It might seem a bit arbitrary, but hopefully when you see it in practice, it's actually quite a smooth transition between the stages. I want them to try it and look quite natural. I don't want it to be look contrived. So just to explain what this stage approach is, I've got the campaign development is comprised of a succession of stages. During each stage, there is a sub-process which governs the scheduling of key actions involved in the establishment of the setup and ongoing development. So basically what I'm saying is each stage has its own little mini process and it covers the contents of that stage. So the first one is going to be about characters and setting. So all my little process is about characters and the starting setting and how to set that up. So it might be, I think it will probably be clearer when I actually go through one of the stages in a bit more detail. So stage 1 is characters and setting, and character party generation. I am going, I am being tempted to go for. I've always liked this appendix H in the. Just get into here. Appendix H. It's called the previous experience, and I've always been a bit stumped with characters. Your RuneQuest character, they're 16. They're basically just like street punks. They don't know anything, and they're expected to go out and do all this adventuring. And having played a lot of Traveller and things like space opera and even chivalry and sorcery to an extent, characters were a bit more kind of fleshed out. And when you think of it, your AD&D character, they're level 1, and they've probably been around, when they do the age and stuff, like a ranger, something's like between 20 and 24. They've been around the block a bit. It's like they've done stuff. Whereas I just felt that the RuneQuest characters just felt too raw, that you're almost playing with spotty adolescents rather than grown men and women. And I think I want to use this previous experience to have more rounded and more nurtured and more experienced and probably most importantly more older characters. So my characters are all going to be probably around about 21, and I'm going to use this previous experience to do that. So that's probably the first thing that is of interest when it comes to character party generation. So I'm saying they're going to be selected with their cultures and backgrounds driven by the solo mechanic. So I'm going to have a few I've got some cultures and I've got some backgrounds, the things like barbarians. You would have tribal barbarians, hill barbarians, and maybe, like nomadic ones. And I'll have them as the options for barbarians, and we can select the characters from that. And this point, they'll be reasonably experienced individuals through using the previous experience rules in Appendix H, and characters start at 21 years of age. And I do have a bit more detail about this is a bit more detail on my character party generation and how I'm going to do that. So I'll just go into that just now, because I think that'll be interesting, because that will be one of the first things we're going to do in this solo role-playing game is to generate our characters. So I'm saying in the party, it's going to be a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 characters. 25% of adventurers will be female, and I'm saying females have a greater role in the various human societies, probably greater, than certainly in our own Earth history. But these are still essentially male dominated. But I want 25% of my adventurers, or at least, would roll to see whether they are or not. There's a 25% probability. All characters are going to be human. The setting is human dominated, and the other races are generally rare and remote. So I want just humans, really. I don't want maybe dragon. I played Dragon a few times, and it was great fun. and an elf. That was good. But I really want to maybe keep them as NPC races for the time being. And you know, if we get to maybe episode 50 or 51, I might feel by that stage that I am so au fait with everything that I want to have a PC that is, say, a dwarf or an elf, or even, God forbid, a duck. You know, that is an option, but at this stage, humans only. And the other races I'm saying are a bit rarer and remote. We will be meeting all the races. Everything in RuneQuest is going to be represented in my world, but not as player characters at this stage. Characters will be selected from a table of background options to derive a balanced party composition. So that's where I was explaining I will have some tables to select these backgrounds based on things like whether they've been an apprentice, say, in the Thieves Guild, or have they been from a barbarian tribe and has it been a hill tribe, or has it been a nomadic tribe? Have they been, say, a mercenary in the lunar, I call it the lunar, in my version of the Empire, their armies, or you know, that kind of thing. And I'm going to have tables to do that, and we'll do 3 to 5 from them. And then characters will be defined by their culture and beliefs, and we'll get a selection of behaviors to choose from based on this. So I'm going to try to personalize my characters based on their culture and belief at the start. It's not going to dictate what their personality is like, but it's going to give some indicators of how they would behave in society based on their culture. Because it's so important, culture and belief in RuneQuest, I think it should maybe have a stamp. And what you want in as a solo role player is you want some hooks and whatever, and any assistance that you can get. And I've found that giving characters personality and some almost like it's almost like an archetype that you can adopt for them. So in AD&D, you've got your cleric, and a cleric will act as a cleric, and you know, unless you have, say, like an evil cleric, but you know, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be trying to heal people, and they're going to be trying to spread the word, and they're going to be very keen on keeping to their alignment. I want a similar kind of vibe in this RuneQuest stuff, where I have the culture and their beliefs basically affecting everything they do. And that makes it easier to roleplay, because you've got a few almost stereotypes that you can draw on. And I think I've talked about stereotypes before in my AD&D game. And my view of them, they're not negative things, and they're actually something to be embraced and used for the solo role player to assist them in kind of generating just the basics of how that character will interact with others, but then you can develop all the nuances, you know, as you play. You know, they might not be, you know, like this. Say we have a burly barbarian that we think, oh, well, they're going to be like a bit boorish and boastful. They might end up being quite different from that, just based on how we actually play them. Okay. And then the final thing, the characters will have had several years of experience to gain some skills and a background story. They start the game at age 21. And the good thing about the previous experience is it does generate quite a lot of skills and background, and you're at a reasonable level. You're quite a robust type of character by the time you get to adventuring. Okay. So back to the second stage in our so that's the characters, and I'll probably have a few sessions where we go through in detail, generating them. I always find it quite good fun to watch these things where we generate characters on YouTube and do the run through. I had a lot of fun with my Traveller ones, because there was the classic thing about the Traveller system is it does this previous experience thing where, and the big joke about it, or the internal joke, is that, you know, do you survive each term of service? There's a survival roll, but what it does is it does produce some quite interesting. The way I've been trying to present it on my channel is I've gone through each of the service cycles with each of the characters, and I've injected through my mechanics just a bit of I suppose description of how their services have gone, and tables to help me interpret the dice rolls. And that's generated quite a bit of entertainment, for myself and hopefully for the people watching it. And at the end result, I get quite a fleshed out character. I'm going to try to do the same thing for RuneQuest. Maybe it's not quite as prescribed, the previous life system, but with some of my tables, I'm going to maybe give a few options to put in a bit of characterization for the characters. Okay, that's enough about characters. Let's get on to the campaign setting itself. And I can see what I think what I'm going to do is I can see that I'm not going to be able to go on about my world setting. I'll shoot a video after this where I talk about the world setting in a bit more detail. But I can talk about the overall campaign setting here just as kind of headline things. And I'm just going to say what we do is we place the characters in a setting, a settlement, and a tavern. So we define a starting settlement and a local tavern using tables to generate the details and seed rumors, along with NPCs and settlement features. So I fertilize this little, it's almost like a scientific little experiment I've got. I've got a little settlement. Well, when I say little settlement, it will be a reasonably, say, a small town. We'll have the local tavern that people kind of meet in, and we'll be having all these other elements adding to the cocktail and bubbling up in our cauldron. And then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to introduce 3 cults that are actively worshipped in the settlement and its hinterland, and determine their temple structure and significant features. So I'm going to almost like have a DIY type thing for cults. And I know in my mythos just now, it's very kind of threadbare, but I want to almost like develop it as I proceed. My origin story and whatever, I don't really flesh it out. I haven't really thought about it too much. I want it to kind of live and breathe with this campaign, and to do these cults from almost like the bottom up. I think it would be quite a bit of fun and you'll get to see how these cults maybe will interact with the characters, further down the line. And I've also thought maybe I'll do the tiering that they have in this. So just on, if we look at cults, so cults are, yeah, the rune cults are, there's sample cults. There's one for Orlanth, Cargalitor, and Black Fang. And what they do is they do it in kind of like, I think, what is the terms they use? Is it ones that are, there's Orlanth. There's ones that are powerful, the major deity, and then they have so they have a major cult, and the second type of deity is a medium power deity, so that's a medium size, and then you have this little third class one. I quite fancy if I put my mind to it, maybe doing the 3 tiers one, or maybe we have 1 major and two medium. Or, I think sometimes the little cults are quite interesting, just a kind of specialist thing. So it's that kind of idea that I want to do in the setting. So that's the second point on the setting. And then the surrounding region, I'm going to define following the overall campaign guidelines. So this world setting that I'll describe in the next video, with the areas populated based on employment of my solar mechanic again. So I have a mechanism to basically create your hex map round about the area, because there's no hex generation system in RuneQuest, so I've had to make one up. But I've got a bit of experience from the AD&D one, so I'm not going to lift and shift from that, but I'm going to use something I would not say similar, but it's going to be it's going to produce maybe the same effects. Let's put it that way, with maybe a bit of characterization. And again, I think with my world setting, I've got some high-level guidelines. With my AD&D setting, I started with a blank page. You know, I think that's maybe the difference that I'm going to have with AD&D, is that AD&D is purely random. It's just generated by the tables. I started with nothing. I started with a hex page that had nothing on it. My Traveller one's a bit like that too. But the RuneQuest one, I'm going to maybe shape a bit as a kind of in an image of what I would quite like, and then use the random elements in that to kind of create any little surprises and distortions. And then I'm going to introduce one of my central conceits, which is what I call the Adventurers Guild. And what the Adventurers Guild is they have been formed in response to this threat that is affecting the world just now, of chaos. And the Adventurers Guild is designed to basically root out individuals in the societies, sift them out from the local population, identify them, nurture them, and get them ready to go in as heroes and rune lords and rune masters. It's basically a kind of boot camp for adventurers. So I've got that as, what they do is they will act as a sponsor for the characters and a place of lodging and support. So we've got a bit of a support mechanism that we can have at the start that will help us. And I found that a real comfort. Going back to my AD&D one, I've got what I call my Green Dragon Inn, and that is a kind of support mechanism, and it gives the characters a base of operations and a bit of safety. And in the Traveller one, I've got my Dragon Hotel, which is you can see like there's a bit of a theme going here. But I found having a safe base and maybe something that's just helping the characters and nurturing is actually quite a big help for a solo player. You've got like another friend that you can kind of lean on to help your party, and almost like help yourself. You don't have to sort of sit there and worry about half the time about, oh my goodness, where are they going to sleep tonight? Are they going to be able to find an inn to stay in? And oh my, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so moving on. Stage 2. Once we're finished with stage 1, and basically it's a generation stage, stage 1. Stage 2 will be the initial interactions and the first adventure. And we'll probably have a few little what I call mini games. I'll perform these for the tavern, the settlement, and the Adventurer Guild interactions. And what this will do is will determine some prominent NPCs, and also give us a chance to road test our characters a bit and see how they interact. Now there are reaction tables in RuneQuest, and I'll be using them. Maybe with some additions of things like personality and what the character of the individuals are like, so that we can have some realistic interactions. And then the first adventure will introduce a mission for the characters to perform, which might be maybe exploring a small place of mystery, or a task such as retrieving an artifact or scouting out a nearby region. So it really is up for grabs what the first adventure is. It'd be quite nice to maybe have a small place of mystery. And the good thing about RuneQuest is, from memory, that everything was quite more kind of compressed and tight adventure experience to, say, Dungeons and Dragons, which tended to ramble into your mega dungeons. RuneQuest never had that, but they did have some quite dangerous little places of mystery or places like ruins to go to. They would have some quite personalized monsters in it. So that's what the angle I'm going to go for, is a bit of personalization, a bit of characterization, thematic side, introduce all that in, and that's what some of my mechanics help facilitate. So we'll play through the initial adventure, allowing the characters' skills and their interplay with the solo mechanic to guide the narrative towards a resolution. So remember, the skill system is key, and I want to try to emphasize that at every stage you play, and have that as very important. So move silently is going to be very important. For example, that will be demonstrated in the game. I'll have opportunities to do that. It's not all going to be about just combat and finding treasure. And then I've got my campaign schedule, which at this stage should be coming in as the master control. It's a bit like our ship's bridge on Star Trek. We'll regularly revisit adventure leads, so that's some of the things that are coming up from some of these mini games. We might have some little rumors or whatever coming to fruition, saying, you know, actually there's this keep over here that, you know, maybe that needs explored, or so that type of thing. And assess how these can be incorporated into the ongoing campaign. The campaign schedule by now should be firmly established and in control of the progression of the campaign and the passage of time. This will now involve the management of adventure leads, events, and background. So this is me sucking in the world side. I've got the events and the background coming in. Campaign schedule is an all singing, all dancing, basically control matrix that controls all the detail and all the kind of macro stuff, the background, and how it kind of basically meets together in the middle. And you know, it sounds very grand, but basically it's just a big sheet of paper that I jot everything down on, and I've got control over, and I can schedule things to my heart's content. And I just feel like I've got overall, almost like a god looking down. I've got a kind of all-seeing eye over things, and I can assess how the game's going. So the next stage, stage 3, is expanding the scope of the campaign, and this is much further down the line. So, you know, we're maybe going to be up to like video 15 to 20 or something by the time we're getting here. This is us introducing wider elements. So based on the outcome of the first adventure, we're going to introduce initial aspects of cults, like local beliefs, the guilds, local professions, other adventurer groups, regional cultures, and nearby points of interest such as ruins and a wilderness area. So we basically expand the setting. We have the cult dimension, we've got the guild dimension, we've maybe got some competing adventure groups, NPCs, we get a bit more exposure to some more of the cultures in the game, and you know, some of maybe the non-human cultures. We might be coming across elves and dwarves and dragon newts, and possibly ducks, and you know, Morocanth and all those good stuff, and then, you know, to tantalize us, some nearby points of interest, such as the ruins and maybe some wilderness areas, and this world that I've got is going to be full of all this type of stuff. You know, the mystery and the it's going to be quite a low population, just, you know, to kind of give you a bit of a heads up, and it's going to be quite it's almost like post-apocalyptic, some of it. It's had a bit of a terrible thing that happened to it a while ago, but I'll explain that all in the next video when I'm talking about the actual world setting. And then, you know, talk of the devil world setting framework. I'm saying this operates in parallel to the campaign development, where we have an overall framework of what the world setting, cultures, and religions are, and release these at points into the game using the campaign schedule. So I've got my high-level guidelines of what the world setting is like just now, and I'll be fleshing that out in parallel with the game as we develop it, and I'll be feeding that in as I mature it. So I'm not really that sure about religions just now. I'm quite good on maybe on some of the cultures. I've got an idea. So I'll be developing all them in the background, and then bringing them in through this campaign schedule in a kind of organized way, and hopefully it feels quite natural. And then expanding the setting, stage 4, deeper exploration. Introduce a short overland journey to a nearby location, expanding the geographical scope. So we're going to expand further out, telescope out. And then developing connections, allow the characters to form stronger ties with NPCs, cults, or guilds. So we might even be getting to the point where we're getting initiation into cults, memberships of guilds, maybe getting involved in the politics of the area. It's becoming a bit higher stakes involved. And then, you know, how do we keep the campaign campaign running. And yeah, I've got phase 5, perpetuation of the campaign. You know, the characters, let's focus back again on the characters. We could have some goal-driven action. We can be at that stage establishing the characters' personal motivations to drive their choices and lead to new adventures. We could be thinking, you know, are they thinking about getting to Rune Master status, or are they thinking of getting to Rune Lord status? Oh, sorry, called Rune Master. Rune Master is a game. Rune Priest or Rune Lord status. Or are they maybe looking for a role in the local hierarchy as lords and masters? You know, we might even get to that level where we've got a bit of sophistication. They're actually part of the social hierarchy. And then escalating stakes, I call it. We gradually introduce larger threats. So maybe this chaos threat is starting to directly impinge. And you know that maybe the characters are responsible for maybe some bodies of men and troops to counter this threat. More complex mysteries or opportunities for significant advancement within the cults or guilds. So this is the progression, the classic progression for RuneQuest characters through the cults and all the different political shenanigans that could be going on there. And then, and also they obviously get all the good juicy stuff with cult rivalry, and you know, the interplay of the cults and how, you know, the dynamic there, which is always very interesting. And then world events, we could be introducing dynamic elements within the setting that can affect the players. For example, maybe a local conflict flares up, a natural disaster, you know, that would be terrible, and the rise of a new power. So I think by this stage we really have got quite a mature campaign fleshed out, and we'd be thinking about maybe starting other player characters and other parties. You know, it would have grown arms and legs by then. So that is the idea. That's kind of what I want to do with the RuneQuest campaign. You know, some final points really just to think about. You know, on the cults, I'd like to introduce maybe some random cult design and guilds, and kind of really flesh them out on screen. I thought that I was kind of toying with those sort of mechanics. Griffin Mountain, I have found, is a fantastic resource. I've got a photo, you know, I shouldn't really say this, but I photocopied my friend's version of Griffin Mountain back in 1981, and I have got that as a resource that I can look at. It has some very juicy bits of information in it, some nice little tables and some ideas for rules. I'm going to use that for inspiration and rules ideas. NPCs, I'm maybe going to have a generator for that, for them, how we can generate them, because it's a very involved process. You'll have, if you've played RuneQuest a lot, you know that you can't just roll up, say, 10 you know, 10 NPCs like that. You just click your fingers, and all you have to do is maybe their hit points and whatever. It's quite an involved process. They've got all these little charts and whatever. I think in the book, these tables here at the end, I think it's, yeah, all this type of stuff here. Yeah, look at these. You know, that's, you know, you might have to do things like that with a hit location and, you know, squad A, squad B. You might even have to do a summary of these for the characters. So there's quite a lot of what I would call bookkeeping, but in a nice sort of way for RuneQuest. You know, characters, they're quite three-dimensional, I would say. Your opposition is in RuneQuest. So I've got to think of a way to cope with that. And then, yeah, of course, the Stormbringer RPG. And once I get the copy, I'm dying to show that off and see what it. But yeah, I have to resist temptation and focus on all my other three flagship RPGs, and Stormbringer's way down the tracks. Okay, that I think that's enough RuneQuest for the time being. Next episode, I'm going to be going through my world setting, and laying out the just the overall just the as I say, the overall world culture, world geography, world history, and basically the threats that environment is under at this stage, and how that will generate some adventure and intrigue and good role-playing fun for our characters. Okay, well, thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.